services that are provided in the community, water is probably the most important. It's the only utility that we actually ingest. If we don't have electricity for a while, we can get along. If we don't have fire service for a while, we can probably get along. But if we don't have water, that's a very critical issue. So for me, that's my primary concern. I want to make sure that we are able to support ourselves on the coast, and based on that, I want to make sure that my three major concerns are that I serve the ratepayers honestly and effectively. I want to make sure that they're aware of what costs are coming, if costs are coming at all. I want to make sure that our service is safe and reliable. Again, water is something that we all have to have, and we want to make sure it's as high quality as possible. And finally, I want to make sure that we are self-supporting to the maximum that we can be, which means additional storage if necessary, new sources of water if we can find those. And those are essentially my priorities, and I would really appreciate the opportunity to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Flint. Our next candidate is Charles Hoelzel.
Good evening. My name is Charles Hoelzel. I'd like to first say I live near BK Motors off Highway 1, just north of Highway 92. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting, and Kenyatta Cove Homeowner Association for hosting this forum. And I'd like to thank all of you for attending this forum and watching it over the internet. Thank you for your interest. I started coming to our coastal paradise in 1991 and fell in love the first time I saw it. Over the years, I've always looked forward to coming back to visit family. I graduated college in 2007 and came to the Coastside to set up shop and start the rest of my life a month later. I'm entering my third year as a business owner at CH Mobile Notary with more endeavors in the future. Also, I'm an avid volunteer at a number of charities and groups on the coast, including the American Cancer Society Relay for Life as a past food chair, the IDS, which I've been a member of for more than 5 years, community breakfast where we serve the needy on a Wednesday and Thursday at the Coastside Lutheran Church, the book fair, and as a past treasurer for the Kenyatta Cove Homeowner Association. The reason I'm running is simple. I believe I can have a positive impact on the future of our water here on the coast. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hoelzel. And our third candidate is Chris Mickelsen.
Hi, thank you. And every election term when I am invited to a debate, the first question I have is this going to be moderated by the League of Women Voters? Because to me it's really important that these be impartial. So thank you very much for stepping up and hosting this. So again, Chris Mickelsen, I'm finishing up my third term here at CCWD. Lifelong coastal resident, born and raised on the coast, K through 12 local schools. Served on the chamber board for 15 years. Like I say, finishing up my 12th year at Coastside County Water District. And you know, I did have to think, you know, long and hard. Do I want to run again? I mean, it is time consuming. But it's been a really wonderful challenge that I've enjoyed over the 12 years. I've met really interesting people. I've worked with really great people. I've honed a skill set that I probably would have never had I not stepped up to run for a Coastside County Water District. So hats off to anyone who considers running. It is really a really rewarding opportunity for community service. But in those 12 years, you know, I've gained so much knowledge that I just felt I was compelled to keep giving and serving my community, because it's a steep learning curve. I mean, we have a variety of sources. We have the relationships that we've built over 12 years with our largest water provider, SFPUC. Through personal relationships there, I was able to negotiate a 10% discount on our wholesale water because we buy raw water, whereas all the other Bosque districts buy treated water. So it was $200,000 a year savings for the next 30 years. And that was done through personal relationships. So having achieved that, I just, felt, I have another 4 years in me, maybe another 8, we'll see how it goes. Because it has been rewarding, but, on the other hand, I was the guy who did raise rates, and I'm sure that will be a topic of discussion tonight. And, when I raise rates, I raised my father's rates, and I was born in Half Moon Bay Nursery, and one day without water can be catastrophic in the nursery business. So I understand the value of water, the importance of water, and I've also had, the hands-on experience. I was there as a little kid watching the wells being drilled. I know the local sources. Certainly it'd be nice to have more local sources. The hurdles in obtaining those are more than likely insurmountable, unfortunately. It's a really tough environment here. But I'm certainly supportive of that. We've been looking for sources. We are contemplating going to another creek in the very near future, but it has very large environmental hurdles, and that may come up later too in further discussion. So again, Chris Mickelsen, would love to serve another 4 years, and look forward to your vote and look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelson. Now it's time for the candidates to answer your questions. So if you have a question and haven't written it down yet, please do so and send it up. And I'm sure we'll be able to get to all of them this evening. So each candidate is going to have 1 minute to answer the question. And I've hired the order in which the candidates are called on to speak. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I do just a random thing when I'm at home with numbers, and so they're all there. So there's no favoritism or anything in this order. And with 3, it's not quite as easy to mix it up. So again, your questions will be brief and ones that can be answered by all candidates. So our first question is, water is becoming an ever more limited resource. What will you do or change to conserve water on the coast side? And Mr. Hoelzel, would you take that 1 minute, please?
I'm a big proponent of conservation on water. It's a very precious resource, so I understand the importance of it. And it's not about making dollars. It's about securing and delivering the best quality water at the best price. But that being said, we have to conserve water. We've done so over the last number of years that we were asked to do so. And the problem, the one thing that I noticed recently in the budget was that it said sell more water. And that's a concern to me. But that being said, how do we conserve water? With recycled water. And that's been a tagline for a number of years. And I think that the conversation needs to come back around to using that good quality water for, possibly the golf courses or horticulture, or maybe even the nurseries, as well as possibly our farms. Instead of using good water, use recycled water for those reasons.
Thank you, Mr. Hoelzel. And Mr. Mickelson, question on conservation.
Great question. Thank you very much. And I get to toot my horn a little bit here. We at CCW are probably one of the first, if not the first agency among the 26 customers who buy wholesale water from San Francisco to hire a water conservation coordinator. We did this about eight years ago because we saw this coming. Droughts. It's not a matter of if we're going to have a drought; it's a matter of when we're going to have a drought. So we were very proactive. We hired a water conservation coordinator 8 years ago. She was poached by the city of Palo Alto, so we had to hire another one, equally as good, if not better. So now that is a trend, and I believe most of the districts now have water conservation coordinators. They're available to the public at a phone call away. They'll even do site visits. We have lawn retirement programs, washer rebate programs. Very, very proactive about water conservation. Kathleen Brennan, give her a call anytime with the Water District. She'd be happy to answer any questions about conserving water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelson. And finally, Mr. Flint.
Thank you. Of course, water conservation is a major topic with any water service agency. And there are a number of new laws that have gone into effect that affect things like runoff, stormwater treatment, stormwater retention, which helps reduce the amount of water that's needed, that's taken from our aquifers and from our wells. So I agree with Mr. Hoelzel that there are benefits to promoting recycling gray water, but I think what that needs in order for that to happen, we're going to have a lot more cooperation among all of the different agencies that provide for those services. And that's my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Flint. Then our next question is actually one I heard in another candidate forum that I moderated. It's a similar one. What is your position on the merging of CCWD with other area water and sewer departments? And Mr. Mickelsen, would you take that?
You know, I don't know the exact number of districts we have here on the coast, but I think it may be somewhere in the, I think elected officials were in the mid to high 20s of elected officials of various boards. I know our general manager was a former manager of Sewer Authority Mid-Coast, so he would certainly have the expertise to run sewer, run water. We probably could do with less agencies, would certainly, the big reason we don't have recycling is we can't all agree to get along. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast was set up with 8 votes, which is an even number of votes. It's at a 4-4 deadlock over recycling, so until something changes there, we'll never see recycling. We need to tip one of these agencies to either pro or just give up on recycling. But right now, we're at a statistical tie, so it can't move forward until then. But it's going to have to come from the voters up. It's not something I can use my customers' resources to promote. If the voters choose to vote for pro-consolidation board members, that would be great, but it can't come from the board down, voters up.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelsen. Mr. Flint.
I would agree with that. I think you touched on that a little bit on my previous response. Coordination among agencies is probably the most important thing to make that happen. And in this environment right now, I think it would be very difficult to make that happen. But just the question of consolidation across the board, I would say, unless it can be shown that it really makes sense from an economic standpoint and a functional standpoint, that I think we'd be hard-pressed to push for consolidation. And maybe it's just a matter of pushing for coordination initially and cooperation. Maybe the sharing of common facilities, for example, would help bring costs down all the way around, which I think would help all the different agencies involved. So that's my response.
Thank you, Mr. Flint. And Mr. Hoelzel.
Thank you. I had a funny feeling this question was going to come up. So we know the stakes are very high, and we need better communication to provide the best possible options for our communities. We need to work with other districts to meet the needs of our communities. Consolidation could potentially reduce costs and overlapping, and the outcome should be more reliable service and a lower rate. However, it seems to me that before we discuss consolidation, we need better communications between agencies. That being said, the concept is great, and the reasons are plentiful. However, the immediate reality might provide obstacles. I believe a first step would be better communication between the districts and the coast again. It would be one of my missions to bridge the gap and get the conversation started again, maybe through a joint effort. There is a bunch that would be beneficial if all are involved with additional sources and storage, as well as recycled water. Working together on projects successfully builds trust, and I'm definitely for it.
Thank you, Mr. Hoelzel. A few more questions here. The next one, do we have plans or what is the status of providing recycled water for agriculture use? And I guess if you can give your opinion about whether you think that's a good idea if you're not sure. But anyway, do we have plans or what's the status of providing recycled water for agriculture use? Mr. Flint.
Again, I think we spoke about the possibility of having recycled water on Coastside. At this point, it's fairly difficult. In terms of uses for agricultural projects, I would say that there are new innovations being implemented right now. Rocket Farms, for example, before they actually took over when it was still Nurseman's Exchange, installed a system of reclaiming rainwater off the roofs of all the greenhouses, where they actually collect it. They don't dump it into a trench. They stockpile it, they store it, they treat it, and they use that. It's probably the cheapest and safest, cleanest water that's available, and they're making every bit of use out of it. So I think that kind of innovation is something that we'll probably see way before we see recycled water.
Thank you, Mr. Flint. And next, Mr. Hoelzel.
Recycle water for the farms. I think and I believe working with SAM and the Joint Powers Agreement that is in place can create recycled water programs on the coast. It could be used for our largest clean water and taking that off the market for the main groups that take from our water source. And that would be possibly the golf courses, the nurseries, the horticulture, and the farms. We have to be careful, and I stressed this 4 years ago, and I'm going to stress it again. We don't want to be where someone is dumping something down the toilet and then us putting that on our farms and then eating it. So that's one concern of mine, but definitely for the golf courses and nurseries, if they would be in favor of that, I would definitely be working towards getting that to the table.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Hoelzel. And finally, Mr. Mickelsen.
Yeah, I'm probably the original proponent of recycled water here, but I tell you, we just keep hitting that same wall, and it's the JPA that created SAM. It's 8 boats, 4 from Half Moon Bay, 2 from Granada Sanitary, 2 from Montero Water and Sanitary. Granada and Montero are 4 votes against recycling. Half Moon Bay, 4 votes for recycling. Whoever created a JPA with an even amount of votes should have their head examined. That said, we had one logical customer come to our podium and ask for recycled water some years ago, and it was the golf course. But you know, he took it to SAM, and it died at a 4-4. We were ready to provide it. It didn't go any further. It would be nice. In a perfect world, I would love to be able to get some cooperation with other agencies. It's not for lack of trying, because I know we have tried for the entire time. You know, my 3 terms we have tried. But we do need a customer, and the only real logical customer is the golf course. Greenhouse nurseries are really afraid of it because it may burn it. One bad batch, it would burn their ornamentals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelsen. You know, here we get down to rates. Outside of buying water, what impacts rates the most? And what could you do to control costs? Do you have any ideas about controlling costs? And let's see, with Mr. Hoelzel.
So every time I open up that bill and the rates go up, I cringe. But, you know, CCWD has done a really good job of isolating us from the excessive rate increases that we've had in other areas of the Northern California and the Bay Area. For this, I'm very thankful for the board for doing that. However, when you sole source our resources, we aren't going to be able to meet the continued need of our community. And so that's how I would consider rates, is bringing it back to alternative sources of water, alternative storages, more storage, and recycled water to control those rates better in the future.
Thank you. And next, Mr. Mickelsen.
The rates. I'm the guy who raised your rates. I'm sorry about that, but here's why. Our district is 8 years older than myself. It was created in 1949. I know when we get to a certain age, we all need a little maintenance, and the pipes, they do have a finite lifetime, about 50 years. We've been on a very aggressive pipeline replacement program. Subdivisions that were built in my childhood are now approaching 50 years. Their infrastructure needs replacement. So it is very infrastructure intensive. However, on the water side, we're lessening our reliance on San Francisco. We just put $7 million into a water treatment plant that is just east of the airport, Denison Water Treatment Plant, so we can harvest more water locally. Over time, the treatment rules have gotten so strict that the old plant no longer met current standards, so it required a complete upgrade. Now we can harvest much more water, and that water is free.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelsen. And finally, Mr. Flint.
Yeah, I think rates and the increase in rates is an issue that everybody is sensitive to. But in terms of water, I think you have to think of it in terms of safety, reliability, and it is a cost that is necessary. I think when you talk about infrastructure, you only have to look as far as San Bruno to see what a lack of maintenance can result in. So I think that there is a cost associated with maintaining a system that is reliable, that we can depend on, and so those types of costs will happen. I think in my role, I would be very conscious of the costs that are involved, making sure that it's reliable, a necessary cost, and that it's cost effective at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Let's see. Okay. Here's a question that this is one of those kinds of questions where sometimes the candidates ask me what it means, but I'm sure here that hopefully they will have a better idea. Please describe raw water and describe its source. I don't know if that's Mr. Mickelsen, why don't you start with that?
Well, after 12 years, I better know what it is. Raw water is untreated water. Of the 26 agencies that buy water from San Francisco, 25 buy treated water. It's mostly treated at the Harry Tracy plant in San Bruno. And then, as we were discussing earlier with the moderator, the other agencies are really distributors. We treat our own water, and we have two sources. We have surface sources, which are exposed to all of the elements, so it's much more expensive to treat, and we also have well water. So we treat two types of raw water, surface and well. That's pretty much covers that question. Good question, though, I'm sure.
Does it, Mr. Flint, do you have any thoughts on raw water?
I'd have to agree, that's well water. I would think the only other source that I could think of that would fall in that category would be drawing water out of streams or rivers as sources. But again, that's untreated, and I guess that's our source where we get our water. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Raw water is cleaned up and becomes domestic service. So.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Hoelzel, do you have
Untreated water, same, and we don't hear much about that because when we turn on the spigot, we expect clean water to come out. And so CCWD has done a great job providing our community with that supply of water. It's just taking that untreated water and actually making it into recycled water where we can use it on our crops and other possible things like the golf course. If we can get a buyer for the golf course, that'd be great. Or a buyer not for the golf course, but for the recycling.
These questions are actually just factual, so it's a little hard to make a differentiation on the candidates. So here we get down to something a little more, giving your opinion on. Describe what kind of emergency or contingency plans we have in place, or that you would like to see in place for earthquake, tsunami, or any other kind of emergency. And let's see, Mr. Hoelzel, will you start with that, please?
I may not know everything there is to know about water. However, I know enough to serve and learn from the best. At the meetings, I'm sure I'll ask a dumb question or two. However, I'll stay focused on clean, reliable water at a fair price. That being said, to answer the question, I can't stand for going to answer the question. Emergency sources, from what I've been reading about and researching, is that there are some contingency plans. If our water supply was to stop, would we borrow water and have a connection that goes between us and the other districts? And with communication and actually getting more knowledge about what would happen in an emergency, that would be important for me as I possibly step into this role.
Thank you. Mr. Flint.
There are a number of contingency plans in place in case of emergencies, starting at the local level with the Red Cross, working their way up to the state and to federal levels. FEMA is there in a major event, but I think before FEMA arrives, it's the first 48, 72 hours that are the most critical, and that is the time where we are on our own. And that is why I think it should be priority to ensure that we have as much storage as possible. Chris mentioned the fact that the Denniston storage facility is coming online. We should do everything we can to protect that as a source. And everybody individually, homeowners, businesses, schools, should also have contingencies in place to make sure that they also have water available, just to make sure we can get through the first several days with clean water.
Thank you, Mr. Let's see, next, Mr. Mickelsen.
I could use about 10 minutes on this one.
Sabotage you.
Yeah, you sabotaging me here. Part of the rate increases are due to this very, very question. Yeah, okay. Gonna start the clock now, please, thanks. We buy 60, 70, 80% of our water, depending on the year. We hope to buy less now that Denison is coming online from San Francisco SFPUC. They recently undertook a $4.6 billion retrofit, and it was seismically driven. It's the pipeline that brings water down from the Sierras to the Bay Area. That was, well, let's say, FDR was there, was our president when that project was completed. So it was very old. It needed to be seismically safe, because the goal was to get that up and running within 3 days, because without water, we are in big trouble. So that is very near completion. However, it did lead to a 350% of rate increase on wholesale water costs. So we are doing everything we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelsen. We're still getting some questions about consolidation, but I think we talked about that a little bit before. So here's another kind of way of looking at this. How have you, or how would you plan to work with the adjoining water districts? Mr. Flint.
I think I briefly mentioned cooperation between agencies, among agencies, as an initial first start. I think over just across the board consolidation, I think, is a very difficult thing, especially when you have different agencies that actually perform different services. CCWD provides just water. SAM provides just sewer. Montera, water and sewer together, it's a different type of facility. So I think initially, if we could look at shared facilities, maybe it's equipment yards, maybe it's equipment itself, sharing office space. Pardon me?
The key of the microphone is off.
Can you?
Yeah.
Sounds on to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Light was on. So basically I think cooperation among agencies would be a good first start, and then see where we can go from there. But until we break the deadlock at the SAM board, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelsen. How would you work with adjoining water districts?
Well, we sent a letter out. It was March of 2012. We have yet to get a response from Montero on whether they want to work with us on recycled water. So we're available. We're in the phone book. You can get a hold of us at any time. All I can say is we're trying. And Steve did touch on something. On the way down, I saw our guys are working tonight. There must be a leak in front of Nurseryman's Exchange. And quite often during the day, you'll see one of our guys driving a backhoe up and down Highway 1. It would really be nice if we could agree to get along, share, it'd be a great place to start, a shared courtyard. Mm-hmm. So we have, a backhoe at the south end of the district and a backhoe at the north end of the district, and guys don't have to drive a backhoe, down Highway 1. So baby steps, and that would be a great first start. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Hoelzel.
Big word tonight, I think, is communication. We need to open up whatever reasonable possibilities may exist and lessen our dependence on SFPUC. And by doing that, Chris negotiated with SFPUC recently, and I'm thankful for the positive outcome of that 10% reduction. Way to go, Chris. And I would just be doing more things along with the help of the other board members to get the communication piece. And if we need to go knock on their doors and see if we can work with them, that's fine. On this campaign, I have talked with other board members from other agencies, and the consolidation thing, I mean, you've seen in the debates, I hope you have at least, but maybe we can work on, and I'm hoping we can work on something like recycled water, or alternative sources, or alternative storage. Those would be the big things to open up that communication and get, not the consolidation, but along that track to get it completed.
Thank you, Mr. Hoelzel. Here's a different kind of question. Is there enough buildable ground for development to help sell more water and reduce rates? That's a different way of looking at the rate situation, I guess. Mr. Mickelsen.
Yeah, fortunately, we're not in the planning business, although it is, yeah, it is kind of the catch-22. We hire a water conservation coordinator, we encourage water conservation, and you know what that means for us? Less income. Meanwhile, we have the same 17 employees that need to get paid because it doesn't matter how much water is running through that pipe, it's still aging, it still springs leaks. So it's not like we can reduce staff. Yes, our wholesale purchases will go down incrementally if we sell less water, but our overhead doesn't really change that dramatically based on how much water we deliver. Our costs are pretty hardened. With Denison coming on, I know it's getting to how much water we buy from PUC. We are, trust me, it was a tough vote. Voting to spend $7 million to retrofit an aging water treatment plant, but the math worked. $4,000 per million gallons is saved up there. So we're doing everything we can. We want to touch on storage for next time.
Thank you. And Mr. Hoelzel, question.
So as population grows, our water is going to become more precious. And that being said, because it should be precious, we should conserve wherever possible. And I'm a proponent for this. I don't believe in selling more water to make a buck. I understand we need to fix our aging infrastructure. However, in the last budget, it states that one of the ways is to bring up the bank account for CCWD is to sell more water. Running my own business, I understand without a product or service, you aren't going to go anywhere. However, not too long ago, we were asked to conserve water, and now we've done such a good job that we're being asked to use more.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Flint.
It really is a double-edged sword when it comes to rates, because like Chris said, the more we conserve, the more the cost goes up. The more we sell, the lower the cost, but then we don't have the capacity anymore. So it's a real balancing act in what you do. So I think rate increases, again, are inevitable. I think it's important, though, to make sure that if rates are going to go up, that there is clear communication ahead of time to the entire community so they are aware of it, they know it's coming, and they know what the benefit is going to be. Because again, it's all about making sure we have safe and reliable water service now and into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Here's a question going back to conservation. What ideas do you have? What else could the water district do to get consumers to think about conservation? Do you have any ideas on that? Mr. Hoelzel.
When I moved out in California in 1991, I remember that when we went to take a shower, we had a little, I don't know if anyone remembers this, a little time clock. And it would say like 2 minutes. That's all you had to do to shower and you had to turn it off. And those were the moratorium days. We're out of that right now, but we are faced with possible moratoriums in the future. And so conservation needs to be priority to make sure that we have enough usable water in the future. And as, again, populations grow and there's more people coming into California, this will even become more important down the road.
Thank you. And Mr. Flynn, what else could we do to get consumers to think about conservation?
Well, I think one of the ways to make them think about it, consumers think about those types of things, are changes to the laws and regulations that require low-flow toilets, low-flow shower heads for all new construction, retrofitting those types of facilities to encourage less water use, or in certain cases actually requiring that less water use facilities be installed. So people definitely think about that because it's an additional cost. And then also to the installation of water efficiency in landscaping on the exterior houses. Also, new laws have gone into effect that require low water usage, low plant materials, and those are also effective ways to make sure that the water usage is gone down.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Mickelsen.
Yeah, thank you. We're now at about 100 gallons per person per day in our district. And we were at one time, we're probably in the 150s. So that is a significant improvement. However, you hear other parts of the world, Australia, or read about, it seems like they're always having these catastrophic fires there. They're down to 35 gallons per person per day. So there still is room. Really short showers, maybe fit for place, but certainly landscaping. Landscaping, that's the low-hanging fruit. It's just getting rid of that lawn, going to a native planting. Right now we have some really great drought-tolerant grasses available, coincidentally from Australia. So you can actually really. That's probably indoors. It's pretty hardened right now. Most of us have low-flow toilets, but most of us have low-flow heads. There's not too much to be gained inside. Most of us probably to be gained outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we're supposed to end by around 8 o'clock, and we want to make sure that the candidates have time for their closing statements. So I'm going to make this the last question. And what do you think is the most important issue facing the Coastside County Water District? Mr. Flint.
Well, again, I think to me the most important issue facing CCWD and the people that it serves is the fact that we are in the location we are. It's an idyllic spot, but we are isolated from the rest of the peninsula, and in case of an emergency, we're pretty much on our own as far as that's concerned. So the more that we can do to ensure that we can actually be self-supporting in the time of an emergency is critical. And there's nothing more critical than water itself.
Thank you, Mr. Flint. Let's see, Mr. Mickelsen, most important issue.
Having been on the board, I can understand. For me, the most important thing that we can keep doing is continuing the infrastructure improvement. There was a time, probably in the 60s and 70s, where infrastructure was relatively new. We didn't really need to raise rates. We didn't need to address it. And it was over that time that the infrastructure started degrading. We didn't have the reserves to fix the infrastructure as they hit that 50-year mark, which they're currently hitting now. We have a very old pipeline going up 92. That's still 1949 surplus welded steel from the war effort. Probably going to be about a $3 million fix, but we've got to fix it. And if that 12-inch pipe breaks, it'll wash out Highway 92. So I understand, I understand the strong parts of our system, and I understand the weak links. And the weak links are still some infrastructure areas that still do need continued improvement. I will continue fixing those. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelsen. Mr. Hoelzel.
Going to the board meetings, the aging infrastructure is definitely what I feel is the most important at this time. The board is currently working on improving our current system, and I agree to keep moving and get the job done to ensure that we get it done correctly. 4 years from now, when we're at this point, I hope to reduce our dependency on SFPC while maintaining the best quality water at a reasonable price. And that's what I was.
Thank you. Well, we covered quite a bit of different topics there, and I'm sure if you have any other individual questions that the candidates will always be available to answer. So now each candidate is going to have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we always reverse the order from that of the opening statements. So our first candidate is Christian Mickelsen.
Well, if you made it this far, I thank you all very much out there in TV land, and thank you to the audience. This is a much bigger audience than I play to on the second Tuesday nights of every month. Our meeting room is typically empty, and to me, I take it as a good sign. To me, that's, you know, it tells me that the community trusts what we're doing, and they're not here to, you know, they don't come to our meetings to berate us like various other districts. So I'm very proud of what I've been doing at CCWD. You know, storage has been touched on. I did want to touch on that a little bit. You have to be careful. I know storage it sounds like a real simplistic solution. Once water is treated, you can only hold it for 3 to 5 days. We treat with chlorine. Chlorine is gaseous, it off-gases, and it becomes an issue after, it won't pass health standards after about 5 days. And then retreated again, it creates trihalomethanes, which are a known carcinogen. So off-stream storage, yeah, I absolutely agree. It would be nice if we could store water. Finding land in this permitting environment for more storage, it's difficult. We've tried it. It's 12 years we haven't gotten anywhere. So I just really wanted to address storage. We're not efficient in any way in storage. We have probably a little better than industry standard. In the event of a catastrophe, like I say, we have 3 to 5 days. Certainly in the wintertime, we have a good 5 days, and real hot summertime, we have 3 to 4 days. So we are absolutely covered there. So I just wanted to address that. Again, thank you very much. I asked for your vote on November 5th. I'd love to give you another 4 years and share my knowledge that I've gained and continue giving back to a community in which I was born and raised. And it's been an absolute pleasure serving on the board of the Coastside County Water District. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Chris Mickelsen. Our next closing statement is from Charles Hoelzel.
Like everyone else, I've noticed that my water bill continues to go up every year. I want to be able to assist in providing the best quality water at the lowest possible price, as the current board has done. My overall goal matches the current board's goal, and that is to provide the best quality water at the best possible price. I've enjoyed being an active member in our community by volunteering, and I am ready to be a part of the continued solution as a board member on CCWD. I believe the following areas are worth deeper exploration and are critical to the future of our quality and cost of water. To maintain the current level of service with an even better control on costs, we must do the following: better communication and cooperation with other special districts, exploring recycled water, storage, and sources. While I've been researching and meeting with board members, I've noticed a sense of togetherness and teamwork. The current board knows a lot about the tasks at hand and are working hard to benefit the residents that they serve here on the Coastside. It was a breath of fresh air to see our elected officials working together. Thank you for your time, and no matter what, I look forward to serving the community any way I can in the future.
Thank you. That was Charles Hoelzel. And finally, our last candidate is Steve Flint.
Well, just to conclude, I think we touched on a lot of really important issues that affect everybody's well-being on the Coastside. The fact that we're looking for new sources of water, I think is encouraging. Reducing our dependence on San Francisco PUC is also an encouraging move. I think that in terms of what the water district provides, it's probably the most important service that we do receive. Basically, you can't fight fires without water, and you can't flush toilets without water. So water is the -- 1 commodity when it comes to the Coastside. I would look forward to working with the board, if I get your vote, to continue to seek out new innovation, to continue to reduce the amount of water usage and look for alternative sources. And I would really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Steve Flint. We have invited all the candidates to put their information on our Smart Voter website. It's smartvoter.org. This is a free service to the candidates. They can put position papers and link to their own websites. And it gives you more information than you're going to find in the ballot pamphlet. So I encourage you, we have bookmarks back there that give the website address. We're also posting links to all the various candidate forums if we know that they're being put on the internet or available to the public. So we have links on our own website. I won't try to give you the address. Just look up League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo County, and you can find some of the candidate forums that we've moderated during the year. And this one will be up as soon as I have the web address. So I just mentioned again, a plug for the League. It's a nonpartisan political organization. If you think you might like to help with events like this, I really encourage you to think about joining the League. And we have brochures back there as well. And especially, I think if you're here, you won't forget to vote on November 5th. But I would encourage you to remind your neighbors and friends and maybe your enemies, I guess, to vote on November 5th. And so now, this brings the forum to a close, and I want you to, anybody who runs for office has to get out there, and make their case to the voters. And I think, it's a real courageous thing to do. It's a way of being involved in the community. And so even if you're not the winner, you put yourself before the people in your community. So please join me in thanking our candidates with our applause.
We used to walk I think we lost the first Wait, where are you? Yeah. I'm on the board. Is she going to go in?
Oh, the board here. So you put in 94019 in it.
94419.
Yeah, to see the video.
Yeah, I'm trying to. We have a special board meeting tomorrow. So I will see our water conservation club. What happens is
Citizen X.
Single or plural?
Single.
Forget about the...
Because it will be different.
Okay. A couple hours?
No, a couple days. It's something that's a chance. We don't need to.
Thanks, guys.
We can do it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your efforts and your work.
Thank you for doing this.
They brought over the stuff we want to play with, since you got all the gear set up. Coastside
smoke a cigarette while everybody clears out of here? We don't have to be out of here tonight. That's cool for that.